My name is Kara and I am with Simply Whole Nutrition, and I'm so glad that you're here. My heart is just for moms and feeding their kids healthy food. I'm so passionate about how to make that happen because it's been a real struggle in my life. I was diagnosed with a genetic eye disease about 7 years ago, and I'm going blind. It's similar to macular degeneration. And I've been able to use diet and food to heal my body. So basically, food has slowed the progression of my deterioration, and at some times it has even reversed it, which has been so neat to see. And when I had children, I really wanted this for my kids. I wanted them to have the best foundation possible. There's always the fear that you're going to pass something on to them, and I just wanted to set them up the best that I could. So that started this journey of how do I feed myself healthy, but how do I also feed two little kids healthy? I have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, and they have all the opinions in the world, just like everybody else's kids. And, feeding them vegetables was hard. Feeding them good food was hard. So basically, that's kind of what started my whole journey as the writer behind Simply Whole Nutrition. So today we're going to really focus on vegetables. It's such a hot topic. It's such a hard one. Most moms I've talked to struggle with getting their kids to eat vegetables. And so that's what we're going to focus today. And I really want you to leave kind of knowing, what really your kid needs as far as vegetables go. I don't want you to spend times, turning your wheels on vegetables that may not be as much bang for your buck. So we're going to kind of focus on that and how you can cook them, how you can prepare them so that your kids will eat them, and just the environment that you create for your kids. So with that said, let's get started. If you haven't already, there's a workbook that's attached below, and you can download that. That kind of has, it's 2 pages that kind of break down vegetables and some of the stuff that we'll be talking through. So if you want to grab that real quick, go for it. Otherwise, we'll get started. Kids need certain vitamins and minerals to be, successful in their growth. There are some that children need more than like an adult would, and there are some things that you can focus on. So when you're thinking about the big picture of food, your kids need fats, proteins, and carbohydrates. So fat, really, this is like what supports healthy brain development. Protein, healthy growth. Carbs is kind of everything else. So this is where your vegetables fall. A lot of your vitamins and minerals live here. A lot also live in meat and dairy products as well. And but this is where most of them are going to live. So if you want to look at that workbook, we can talk specifically about what those nutrients are that they're getting from vegetables. So that's vitamin A, vitamin C, iron, and zinc. Those are really like the big ones that you're kind of knocking out with vegetables. There are a few others that your kids need. One that I'm sure you've heard is like fish oil, but a lot of them live in vegetables. So this is scary. This is scary, right? I mean, even when I was writing this, I'm like, okay, we need to work on some vegetables because there are some things that my kids' diets are not as balanced around, like leafy greens. Like, I know very few kids that just grab a handful of spinach. And though I wish that was my child, I see it on Instagram, kids, holding kale and biting kale. That is not my kid. And so that's an area that I can focus on. So basically, let's kind of get into that workbook. You can kind of divide them up and see kind of the areas that your kids are and are not getting vegetables. So at the top of the worksheet, we've got kind of the green vegetables. So if you start with that, there is a lot of zinc in green vegetables. You can get zinc in other things like, meat and nuts and seeds, but a lot live in our green vegetables. So these are our green beans and our Brussels sprouts and our asparagus. To me, this is a really hard area. This is like, there are a lot of foods in this category that my kids wouldn't eat. And that I had to really focus on because zinc is very, very, very important. This is what helps with physical growth, neurological development. I mean, these are important things. So I need to figure out how to get my kids to eat these. Okay, so now let's talk about leafy greens. leafy greens have a ton of iron in them. That is why leafy greens are important. Iron is really important to your kids' development. This is what develops their brain. So along with fat, iron develops their brain, and that is important. We all want smart kids, right? And leafy greens are going to help with that. So basically, you know, this one is, I also think, a really tough category. Like I said earlier, my son does not eat kale. Like he doesn't. Even I've tried kale chips and he won't eat them. So this is a hard area. There's also, you know, ways that you can, you know, substitute leafy greens if they aren't getting a ton of them. Pumpkin seeds is a good way. Cashew, which we eat a lot of cashew seeds, and cashew nuts. Cashews are not seeds. Nuts in our house. So you can eat those things to kind of supplement not getting as much leafy greens. But we're going to get into how to get them to eat all these things. Then next, let's talk about orange and yellow vegetables. So these they stand out to you. Carrots, sweet potatoes, you kind of know what those are. And as you know, you probably know, you drink a lot of orange juice when you were sick. These have a lot of vitamin C in them. They also have a lot of vitamin A. But you know, who wants a sick kid? These support their immune system, and they also have tons of phytonutrients in them. I'm sure you've heard of beta carotene, which helps their eye development. So does vitamin A. So this kind of area is doing a lot of different stuff. And then you also have the purple or red. Really, the first thing that comes to my mind is beets and eggplant, purple onion, those kinds of things. This is what is kind of detoxifying their body. So this is what's going to help them fight off, you know, all the chemicals that they're being exposed to. It's also going to help them fight off inflammation, which inflammation can be anything from like running a fever when you get sick to, you know, your knee hurting or things like that. But in kids, this is all about just keeping that process healthy, their detoxification process, their ability to handle things that come at their body. As we get older, this wears and wears and wears, and as we get older, we need more and more of these nutrients from these vegetables. But as a kid, we got to support this from the beginning. So I run through those really quickly. But if you think about the 4 different categories, I'm sure there's categories that stand out to you. Like you're like, I'm nailing the orange category. My kid's eating sweet potatoes, they eat carrots, we're good there. Or you look at the green category and you're like, we got some cucumber, we got some celery, maybe we could work on asparagus. So take that sheet and kind of look through it. Circle the ones that are really standing out to you. That you could add, like, oh, I could probably, you know, sneak in some eggplant. I'll show you how to do that later as we talk more, but circle some things that you're like, we have nothing in the purple category. I'm going to work on one of these vegetables. I'm going to make a concerted effort. Or we have nothing in the leafy green category. Figure out kind of where your weak spots are, where you know your kids need, you know, some more vitamins or minerals in that area so that you can work through those things. Okay, so now we've kind of worked through what our kids need and what we should be thinking of and looking at as vegetables. And let's get into some more details of how to make that happen. So I want to give you guys 6 ways to get your kids eating vegetables. Some of these are very actionable and some of them are a little more arbitrary, but here's the deal. I would love for you, while I'm talking, to kind of write them down. I would hate for you to, you're a busy mom, and if you've spent the time watching this, I would love for you to leave with action items. So right now you have kind of your list of vegetables that you know that your kid needs, that you need to work on, whatever that area is. For me, like I said, it is leafy greens for sure. So whatever that is, just kind of have that in mind as we talk through these things. And when I mention things that kind of resonate with you, write them down so that you can kind of leave with an action plan of how you're going to handle this moving forward. Tip number 1 is get your kids involved. This is probably something you've heard. And you're probably like, yeah, that's annoying. Because that's kind of how I was when people would tell me that. It's like, I don't know how to get them involved. It's really easy for me to get them involved in baking cookies. And man, do they ever get excited about those. But how do I get them involved in vegetables and other things? This was a huge area of struggle for me. And rightfully so. I mean, it's not easy. So, like I said, my kids are 3 and 1. So this is a young age to be getting them involved. Some of you may have like older kids, and I feel like that it gets easier as they get older because what they're capable of doing becomes more and more and more. But for young kids, like my kids' age, really, really simple is just when you go to the grocery store with them, you talk through the fruits and vegetables. Show them a head of broccoli. Like if you think about it, has your kid ever actually seen broccoli like on the head? I mean, sometimes I don't even buy it like that. I buy it already cut up because I'm, so busy and in such a hurry. So I don't even know that they've I have these moments where I'm like, have they seen celery like as a celery stalk, or have they only seen celery with peanut butter, almond butter, and raisins on it? Like they need to know what they're eating. It helps them to get the full picture. I mean, some people just say some research says to go all the way back to the garden, which we've tried to garden. I don't have a green thumb, so I can't take it that far back. I just don't have the capacity to do that. If you do, go for it. But, get them in the grocery store with them. Make a trip, if you just need a couple things at the grocery store and you can just run in. Use that extra time where they might stay sitting in the car entertained to run through the produce section and show them a couple things. This will go a long way. I know it seems like, why would that help? But when they're eating, it is such a sensory overload for them. They're experiencing so many things at one time, which, to us seems silly because we have eaten 3 meals a day for 30 years. So, but for them, like, this is a lot that's happening on their plate. And so if they can understand where some of the stuff came from, you're making connections for them, which I know that you've seen happen. I have, okay, we're gonna have to edit that out. You can get the, okay. Get your kid involved in cutting. Curious Chef is a great brand. They're on Amazon that has a plastic knife. So, I give them the scraps from whatever you're making and let them just go to town on it. Your older kids, they can actually cut what you're eating. But your younger kids, you can let them, try to experience cutting and do it right next to you and, experience it together. And they can actually feel and see what these things are before they get in front of it and they're just supposed to put it in their mouth. I have on my website a card game that I wrote that you can play at the grocery store. So basically they draw a card, there's a fruit or vegetable on there, and there's a recipe on the other side. So you just go, you pick out the fruit or vegetable, you come home and you make the recipe. And it's super simple recipes. All the recipes only have 5 ingredients on them. So it's things that your kids can actually help you make. And there's tons of resources like that out there. If you just search Pinterest, you'll see tons of games you can play at the grocery store, different things, to get them experiencing the food before it's on their plate to eat. Another thing that I like to do with my kids is grab a muffin tin and throw different fruits and vegetables in it and ask them which one's green, which one's yellow. And so that experience, that sense, sight, all that, you're working through that with them as they're deciding to try things. Maybe another idea that you could do is just let them sensory play with fruits and vegetables. No pressure of eating. So don't have them sitting at the table, but let them touch and feel, I keep using bell peppers as an example, but bell peppers. And I mean, the seeds on the inside of bell peppers, those are pretty cool, how they're all like that. So just let them, touch it and play with it with no pressure of eating it. These are all ways to get them involved with food and experiencing food before they actually are like having to put it in their mouth to eat it, which is a lot of pressure. It has to taste good. This one is, I guess, duh. You're thinking, I know it has to taste good, but it does. I mean, it has to taste good. And here's the deal. If you can get them to try broccoli one time, only one time, it's got to taste good that one time or they're not going to try it again, right? And so our window is kind of small. Once they decide they don't like something, Lord knows that it is hard to get them to eat it. So, ways you can do this. Butter. Your kids need butter. Their brain is developing. They need butter. If they have a dairy allergy, try coconut oil. But butter makes everything taste better. and they need it. So that is a great way you can try to encourage them to eat things. Try fresh spices. This is another fun thing you can explore with your kids and get them involved in. But we all know that fresh rosemary tastes better than jarred rosemary. So try that. One thing that I use a lot is spice blends. So, I'm not a professional chef. I'm just a mom cooking for a family, and I don't know how to combine oregano and basil to make, the eggplant taste good. I don't know how to do that. But there are blends out there that do that for you. So just look for those at your grocery store. Grab those and just throw them on the vegetables that you're making. Trader Joe's has a ton of good blends. So explore spices with them. Salt is another thing that makes things taste good. Salt isn't bad for your kids. If you are buying, sea salt, the real deal salt, this isn't bad for your kids. Iodine is a vitamin in salt that your kids need. So you can put salt on their. Okay, another way to make your kids' food taste better is cheese. Putting cheese on broccoli makes the broccoli taste better. A cheese is not the enemy. So if you're buying good quality cheese, I usually do buy organic cheese. You can hide a lot of things underneath that cheese. So use cheese to your advantage. And then the last thing that I would say to make food taste better is dips. So everybody loves a good hummus or a good ranch dressing. Though conventional ranch is unhealthy, there's tons of stuff out there that is good for your kids. So, and they love to dip. I don't know why. It's fun for them. It's interactive. It gets them engaged in the food. So let them dip. A lot of times for roasted broccoli at my house, just make honey mustard sauce from scratch, really easy. I squirt some mustard and I squirt some honey in a container, swirl it up, and let them dip their broccoli trees and that. So, get them trying different things. If you like a dip, they'll probably like a dip. And don't be afraid to let them, use dips. Just watch for any processed sugar, which ends in OSE. Whatever the word is on the label will end in OSE, and that is processed sugar. Okay, number 3, don't miss opportunities. So this one really, I feel like, vegetables are on the dinner table, but they're not a lot of other places. So breakfast is a huge missed opportunity. I think most people don't serve vegetables at breakfast. And it's because you're in a hurry, you're trying to get out the door, and it's not really a conventional breakfast food. A lot of breads and starches are conventional breakfast foods, so people they steer away from vegetables. But you should include vegetables. So how I include vegetables in our breakfast is I roast a bunch of sweet potatoes at the beginning of the week. I literally put them in the oven whole, just the whole thing, 400 for 40 minutes. And I take them out and I peel them and I throw them in a Ziploc bag. And every morning I cut them up and I sprinkle them with cinnamon and I warm up some butter in a pan that I'm gonna scramble eggs in after. And I drizzle butter over the sweet potato and then I crack an egg in it and I scramble an egg in it. So my kids have sweet potato every morning, and that is kind of, where our orange food is covered. Every day they have a sweet potato. As adults, that's a lot of carbs for us, but our kids, they're growing and they need that. So the fat in the butter is balancing out the sugar that they're getting in the sweet potato, and it's a well-rounded breakfast for them. Another thing you can do if your kids are big egg eaters or omelet eaters, that's a really easy way to hide things in an omelet. You can chop up spinach really fine and flash fry it in the pan before you put the egg in to get some different things in. Butternut squash is a great thing that goes well with eggs. Okay. Another way to get vegetables in the morning is there's tons of recipes for muffins and pancakes that hide these vegetables in them, which I know we don't all have time to make homemade muffins, but if you make it a weekend practice. So for a while we were doing, on Sunday was muffin day, and Mom would make muffins on Sunday morning, and it was kind of like, I'm sure you've heard of like dads make pancakes on Saturday morning. We would do that on Sunday, muffins, and I would just double the recipe and I would freeze them. And it would last me for a while, and I would just grab one out of the freezer and warm it up, and that's what they would have for breakfast. So that's another idea to hide vegetables from them. at breakfast. Okay, so snacks is another way that I think is a missed opportunity. We aren't having vegetables as snacks, and they're not easy to tote around. I get it. And also, there's a lot of snacky food out there that's super, super yummy that you're competing with during snack time. So I've been working with my kids really hard on getting them interested in raw fruits and vegetables. Well, they eat most of their fruits raw, but raw vegetables. So we've been having cucumber, cauliflower raw, and carrots, trying to get them just kind of interested. And it is taking multiple times of presenting these to them, but I'm hoping over time I'll just be able to throw some carrots in a Ziploc bag and take them on a snack. Another idea that's easy is pesto. So just make some pesto and let them have that as a snack. And basil is an herb, but count it as a vegetable. They're getting nutrients that way. Some other good ideas for snacks are smoothies. So these are easy to take on the go. In my opinion, I just put them in a mason jar and screw the lid on real tight. But you can hide a lot of things in smoothies. You can put a lot of spinach and leafy greens in your smoothies, half of an avocado in a smoothie. Those are kind of ways that your kids will eat that stuff without, it doesn't have to be just a whole, Okay, so another way to hide vegetables from your kids would be, so another way for your kids to get vegetables during snack is a smoothie. That is a great way to hide, leafy greens, or put leafy greens or an avocado or even some frozen cauliflower, frozen steamed cauliflower in their smoothie so that they can drink something sweet and it tastes like a sweet snack, but they're really getting a good amount of vegetables. Those are harder to take on the go, but we just throw ours in a mason jar with a lid on it, and then I just dump it into their smoothie cup. Their smoothie cup. Well, I guess it's a smoothie cup, but their sippy cup whenever we get where we're going. Another snack that my kids love is guacamole. So we make guacamole a lot. They get to have chips, which is kind of that like salty snack that they really want with the crunch, but they're getting avocado in the guacamole. Okay, so number 4, you want them coming to the table hungry. You're spending time making the vegetables that they're having at the table. That's your best foot forward. You've cooked dinner. These vegetables are your best foot forward, and you want them to eat them. You want them to try them. And if they come to the table kind of hungry, they're probably not going to try the vegetables. They're not that hungry, and they don't want, ultimately want that. So, limit the snacking. Get in a routine with your kids to the point where when they sit down to dinner, they're hungry. And this has worked wonders in my family. It really has. It took a long time to find balance, but my son does not snack a lot. And so we eat meals at the table, and it works great for me because I can get the vegetables prepared and ready for him. It's so much easier when you're on the go to have these starchy snacks, rice cakes, chips, goldfish, all that stuff. And that when they fill up on that, it's not providing any nutrients to them. And then when they get to the table, they're not eating, their nutrient-dense meal that you spent so much time preparing. So set up a routine. If you're like major snackers right now, start toning it back. One thing that I've seen a lot of moms do is fill up kind of, it's like what you used to keep jewelry in as a little girl. It's not a caboodle, but or a fish tackle box. Fill up a small one. Don't get the big one, but the small one with snacks. Put nuts in one, and the goldfish they like in one, and basically explain to them these are your snacks for the day. You can have this little kit, and this is your snack, but when this is gone, this is it. And slowly cut back how much you're putting in there and how much you're doing, and maybe start filling the containers with other things that they like that aren't food related, until you get them to where they're not snacking a ton and they're sitting down at their meals and they're eating. You know your kid and you know what they need as far as food goes, but limiting their snacks will help. Limiting how much you're letting them snack and how close to mealtime you're letting them snack, and will really increase what they're eating at the table. Number 5 is lean in. Lean in to what they're already eating. So my son loves avocados. He eats them all the time. and they make my grocery bill skyrocket, but it's something that I make sure and have for him. So if he's gonna eat avocados, I wanna have them on hand. And I think the same should go for your kids. If they are going to eat butternut squash, have butternut squash at your house. If they like it, make it. If you have a list of fruits and vegetables in your head that your kids eat, be sure that they're on your grocery list every week. So like the example of butternut squash is so hard to cut up. I mean, who really takes the time to cut up butternut squash? I am unsure, but you can buy it already cut up. So whatever you need to do to be sure that you get it on the table, do that. Buy the already cut up butternut squash and cut your grocery budget somewhere else. So make sure that it's on the table if they're gonna have it. And I think you're like, yeah, I know this. But write down, on the back of that worksheet, what vegetables they eat, and look at them and say, am I really getting these on my grocery bill every time we go? And just think about making a concerted effort to include them. The other way that you can lean into what they're eating is think about the foods they love. So what is it that your kid likes? Is it pizza? Is it spaghetti? Is it mac and cheese? There are ways to incorporate vegetables into those items. So pizza, for example, you can definitely hide some veggies in pizza. Do it under the cheese though, because they're sneaky. So you may have to make it. Another way that you can do that is I have a recipe where I make eggplant pizza. So I actually cut up eggplants, cook those, and make little bitty mini pizzas on them. Try different things to incorporate vegetables into what they like. There's tons of recipes for hiding butternut squash and sweet potato and mac and cheese. There's recipes for hiding vegetables and spaghetti squash. Whatever it is that you can make the item healthier. If it's spaghetti, that's great. Try a spaghetti squash for the noodles. Try some different, you can buy noodles that have lentils, that are made out of lentils or made out of spinach or whatever. Try to make what it is that they love healthier and include those vegetables in them. Number 6 is when all else fails, hide it. So I'm gonna just start out the gate by saying there is some research around the fact that if you hide vegetables from your kids, that you're breaking their trust. So your kid. And with my kid, it works. It may not work with your kid. It may break trust with your kid, but your kid. My rule is if he asks me what's in it, I tell him what's in it. So if he asks me what's in the muffin, I tell him sweet potatoes in the muffin. If he asks me what's in the smoothie, I tell him there's kale in there. I don't go hide and try to make the smoothie where he can't see me. I let him be a part of making the smoothie if he wants to be a part of making the smoothie. That's kind of how I don't break trust. But I just want to say that out the gate before we kind of go into it more, is that there has been some research that it can break trust. So just know your kid and know how to handle it. But I think hiding vegetables, it doesn't have to be hiding, but including vegetables in unconventional ways, so to speak, is a great way to get your kids eating them. There are so many recipes out there. If you go to simplywholenutrition.com and on my blog, you search for hidden vegetables, I've done a roundup of all my favorite recipes and recipes that we use in our house. And then I've also included the recipes that I have on my blog to hide vegetables and different things. So give it a try. One easy way that we hide vegetables is cauliflower rice. So I don't know if you've seen that at your grocery store, but when I make ground beef for tacos, which we probably have once a week, I put about half a bag of cauliflower rice in there. And with the spices and everything, my kids don't even know that it's in there, and they've never asked or said anything about it. So there's simple ways that you can hide it, but then there's also full-blown recipes that you can try. If your kid will eat purees, that's another great way, to get vegetables into their diet, similar in concept to the smoothie. So if you want to head over to my blog and check that out, there's applesauce, there's pancakes, there's spaghetti squash, there's chicken nuggets, there's all kinds of stuff that have hidden vegetables in there. But if you're really having a hard time with it, give that a try. I know there's also at this Healthy Kids Summit someone who specializes in picky eating. So if this is really becoming a pain point for you, check her out. Her name's Jo, and I'm sure she's going to have some great tips on how to handle things too. Okay, I thought before I let you go, I would do a real quick rapid fire kind of vegetable incorporation ideas for you guys. So let's get started. I'm going to talk really fast. So get a pen and let's go. Beets. Beets are hard. Roast them in the oven, freeze them, and then throw them into smoothies. If your daughter loves pink, this will turn her whole smoothie pink. It will be so much fun for her. Also try beets in hummus. There's lots of recipes out there on the web that will give you some ideas on how to incorporate it. Eggplant. This one's hard. Eggplant's gross to me, but these recipes work. So eggplant parmesan. Everybody loves eggplant parmesan. Give that a try. Don't be afraid that it's too fatty for them. Just use a good quality fat. It's really bright. Didn't do right. Eggplants also make great French fries, and they also make great pizza crust. So if you just cut the rounds, cut it like that, and make the rounds into the crust of the pizza, your kids will love those. Cauliflower can be used in like a million different ways. So cauliflower rice, cauliflower cheesy bread, cauliflower pizza crust, cauliflower mashed potatoes, cauliflower pancakes. You can make pretty much anything out of cauliflower. So just Google around and check that out. Cucumber is a hard one. If your kid doesn't like cucumber raw, you might be having a little bit of trouble getting them to eat it. You can pickle them yourself if your kids like that flavor. I have one kid that does really like that flavor. You can also use a spiralizer and cut them into ribbons, and those are fun for your kids to play with, and sometimes the presentation is enough to get them to try it. Another way is just make tahini sauce with whole cucumbers in it. They might really like that on a wrap. Okay, now let's talk means a little bit. So we talked about a smoothie. My rule for a smoothie is 1 fruit to 2 vegetables. So if I'm going to put a banana, then I'm going to put kale and half of an avocado in it. So just don't overdo it on the sugar on your smoothie recipes. The same thing goes for pouches. If your kid really liked pouches when they were little, look on Amazon. They have reusable pouches that ziplock at the bottom. Make your own. Don't be afraid to include meat here if you're having trouble getting your kids to eat meat. But it doesn't have to go away once they learn to eat. If pouches was a way you were getting your kids to eat vegetable, don't be afraid to use that, again, to your advantage. Another idea is wraps. If your kid will eat a flour tortilla with lunch meat and cheese, throw a piece of collard green or Swiss chard in between the meat and the flour tortilla and roll it up. They may not even notice with some good ranch dressing. We have a taco night in our house once a week. This is a great way to hide vegetables. I hide chopped up kale and spinach in their quesadilla or their taco, shredded zucchini and cauliflower rice. They never even know that it's there. Another way is soup. If your kid is picking around the vegetables in the soup and eating what they like in the soup, try pureeing the base of the soup. So make a tomato base or a butternut squash base with the broth. They won't even know that they're eating the vegetable as they're eating the soup. Fries, chips, baked goods. Fries is another great way. Anything that's like a root vegetable makes for a great fry. So sweet potato, butternut squash, parsnips. Those all make really, really yummy fries. And like I said before, eggplant and zucchini. If you're going to do a zucchini for a fry, dip it in some egg and then roll it in some almond flour. Try using almond flour instead of regular flour because it's like they're eating almonds. So you're getting in some fat and some other nutrients, which normal flour doesn't really have for you. Chips is another great way. Zucchinis make great chips. Parsnips make great chips. Sweet potatoes, just cut them real thin. Even you can use a julienner to get them extra thin and roast them in the oven. They'll be really yummy. I'm sure you've seen all the Instagram toast of people at coffee shops with their avocado toast. Use this to your advantage, but don't be afraid to throw other things in there like spinach. I hide kale in my guacamole all the time, so don't be afraid to try that. We talked about baked goods. You can hide shredded vegetables and pureed vegetables in baked goods, and there's tons of recipes out there on how to do this. So if you have a particular vegetable that you're having trouble with, say broccoli, Google broccoli baked goods and see what comes up. And lastly, for the means would be mashed. Mashed potatoes are a huge hit in our house. And what I do a lot of times is make a couple potatoes that I'm gonna mash up, but then I also hide things like cauliflower, rutabaga, radishes, and parsnips in there, and they don't ever even know that it's not just potato. If you wanna do an orange mash, try things like acorn squash, butternut squash, and sweet potato, and even carrots. They'll never know. We talked a lot about dips. Don't be afraid to use dips to your advantage. So things like hummus, pesto, almond butter, tahini. These are all things that make vegetables really, really yummy. And yeah, don't serve them vegetables without dips that they won't eat them. It's just a great way to hide it. You can also make vegetables into desserts. Use things like coconut butter, cinnamon, vanilla, and honey on things like sweet potato and butternut squash. And you can actually serve them as dessert and they will never even know the difference. Okay, lastly, let's talk how to cook vegetables a little bit. So you can oven rest them, turn the oven up high, like on 400. Root vegetables make for a great oven roasted vegetable dish. I also love broccoli, really crispy on the ends and dipped in honey mustard sauce. It is so good, and my kids typically will eat broccoli that way. You can also saute your vegetables. Use a hearty oil, something like coconut oil or avocado oil. Don't use olive oil. Saute them. Don't be afraid to hide fruits in here. So peaches and pineapples and sauteed with sauteed vegetables. That makes for a good dinner. Also, don't be afraid to throw vegetables on the grill. Send your kids out with your husband out to the grill, out of the kitchen, and have them grill things. Throw fruits in here too, and you can even do half of an avocado face down. It's just a different way to have it, and it will help your kids to experience the vegetable in a different way. Okay, you can steam vegetables. I'm not crazy about steamed vegetables. This is a great thing to do for kids that are just learning to eat and just starting to eat. It's also really super quick and easy. Don't be afraid to fry vegetables. It's not bad for them. They need the fat right now, so don't be afraid to throw some vegetables in a pan with some oil and fry them up. If they'll eat it, this is a great way to get them to eat it. And lastly, raw. I don't know why I didn't think to really do this much, but I don't serve a ton of raw vegetables to my kids, and I should. Don't be afraid to try things like asparagus raw and more unconventional vegetables raw, but they'll spend a lot more time eating it. They spend a lot of time in the high chair trying to eat bell peppers and carrots and things like that, so it's a great trick. Okay. I hope this stuff helped. I hope it jogged your memory, you wrote down some ideas, and you're maybe going to change snack time up a little bit this week. Good luck. You totally got it. Okay, so that's it for me. I had so much fun talking with you guys, and I just want to give you a little encouragement here at the end. You are doing a great job. You're watching a video, trying to figure out how to get your kids to eat vegetables. I know for a fact that you're doing a great job. So way to go. Just keep pushing through. With anything with kids, I know you do something for a while and you get no headway, and then all of a sudden you have a breakthrough. So keep going, keep trekking, be intentional, take your notes and throw them in your purse with your grocery list, and try to make an effort to be sure you're grabbing different things at the store. These are important things that seem so big and unimportant sometimes. But I know they are, and I know you want to make an effort to do it. So keep going. You're doing great. And reach out to me if you need anything. You can find me. I'm all over the internet with all kinds of free content and stuff. My name is Simply Whole Kara on all of my social media, and my blog is simplywholenutrition.com. Send me a message. Ask me questions. The more I hear from you, the more I know what kind of content to put out there for everybody. So I'm more than happy to answer. So just let me know. Thank you so much.